Good morning, Ulla.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I would also like to welcome all our new officials and wish you a Happy New Year. My name is Ulla Wildrich. In the interest of public concern, I would like to address a matter that merits your attention involving the local no-kill shelter known as the Nspca, which I believe is located in your district, Commissioner Naft. While this is not a municipal facility, it is still an entity that operates in Clark County and requires a charitable business license. There are issues of public safety, unsuitable conditions, and a manner of operation that lacks transparency and accountability. Additionally, public access to the animals has long been denied, which is counter to the goals of any shelter. How does one locate and bond with a potential pet if they cannot access and interact with the animals, right? On behalf of the many kind-hearted donors who have donated to this organization with the assurance that their money is either going to the care of the animals or towards the construction of a new facility, we are asking you to conduct your own due diligence and review the concerns presented in a petition that references ordinances that we believe are being violated. And I have a copy of that petition along with statements from others who could not be here today. I will be submitting that. There are also multiple complaints that have been filed with animal control. When concerns have been presented to the board of directors, they have responded with stonewalling and intimidation tactics, including threats of lawsuits. Those are not exactly gestures of goodwill indicative of any organization interested in improving. A president of the Cy Red and Maryland Red Charitable Foundation recently shared that they used to make annual contributions, and one of the conditions was that each charity that was a recipient had to submit the annual P&L statement and balance sheet. Out of 60 charities, the Nspca was the only one that failed to provide the financial information requested. I think that's very concerning. In conclusion, the concept of alive at any cost should not come at a cost to an animal's quality of life, especially when it's a facility that is tasked with the care of these beings, some of whom may end up living there for the rest of their lives. So I ask you to please look extensively into this organization as you would any other facility operating in a questionable manner in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could leave that paperwork with the clerk, we'll look into it. Anybody else wishing to speak during public comment? Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Marco Panta. I'm a recent former employee of the organization. I removed myself for moral reasons for some points I'll present to you today. The first one being the lack of properly trained medical personnel that have been put in positions of medical leadership, none of them being formally properly trained in any of the practices that they have performed. And this led to animals being stored in wire kennels in the office for days, even weeks at a time, only being let out to clean the kennel being spoken of. The second, the thousands and thousands of insects that infest the facility, mainly roaches and black widows that can be found throughout during the night periods. Those roaches can be found roaming through the bedding, the food and water bowls, sometimes on the animals themselves, all over the facility. It is not the cleanest, and something better can be done about this. The third point is with direct retaliation towards myself by the board members of the organization for speaking to the local media of my concerns. They have removed animals from training of the local facility where I am currently employed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak during public comment? If you guys could line up, that would be helpful so we could kind of gauge. And we have 2 microphones, so I could have 2 of you at a time. Okay. Go to the video. Okay, you can go ahead and start your presentation, and then we'll get the video up and going.
Good morning. My name is Jim Phillips. My wife was a volunteer at the Nspca for 1 year. She was very dedicated. She volunteered 3 days a week. Last April 11th, while she was at the shelter, she was brutally mauled by a large dog. As she laid on the ground, a bloody mess, an employee told her for the very first time that this dog had been at the shelter, adopted out, but returned because it had attacked the owner. My wife was rushed to UMC where she underwent hours of emergency surgery. She was hospitalized for 6 days. Excuse me. So why am I here? To this very day, the NSPCA has never once reached out to her, not once to check on her. She left in an ambulance unconscious. They never once have called to see if she's okay. It's as if the first responders took her out with the trash. It's absolutely unacceptable. You can see some of the photos. A lot of them are worse. This dog bit her numerous times, latched onto her ankle, breaking all the bones, severing the ligaments, tendons, muscles. The doctor said there was only 1 inch of flesh holding her foot onto her leg. And it was very traumatic. She's going to counseling. Financially, it's devastated us. And to add insult to injury, while we were sitting on her hospital bed, we watched NSPCA Director Kathy Jung go on TV and push a fundraiser. Yet she couldn't pick up the phone for 30 seconds to contact my wife, who could have died at that facility. It is unacceptable. You know, you can't act like this didn't happen. You can't look the other way, because this could happen again. This dog was certified as being safe and a non-biter, which means it could have been adopted out to a family with small kids. That's scary. Think about it. If it attacked my wife, it could kill a small child. So I just want to leave you with one thing. If this is how they treat my wife, a human being, you can only imagine how the animals are being treated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Kara Matthews. I am a volunteer with the Nevada SPCA. I moved here 6 years ago and started volunteering with them. I've been doing animal rescue for about 18 years in Salt Lake, and I work with a lot of other organizations other than the Nevada SPCA. In the time that I've been with the Nevada SPCA, I do something a little bit different. I don't walk dogs. I don't do any of that kind of a thing. My goal and my job is to help take care of the animals. I am what's called the volunteer rescue coordinator. So a lot of the animals have been there for up to 5 years and more. And most of these animals are not adoptable whatsoever, at all. And my job is to go in and try to find other rescues to come and take these animals and get them the help that they need, which normally is medical and behavioral. Along with that, I go into the NSPCA and I take care of wound care for the cats. So last year there was a lot of outbreak of illness and really sick animals at the shelter. And I'm a stay-at-home parent, so I have the ability to go every day. I voiced my concerns to the president of the NSPCA, and she shook me under the rug and said, Kara, if you'd like, you can come in every single day and take care of these animals, which is basically cleaning their wounds, you know, and things of that nature, which I did take that role on as myself, and I did do that. I also foster animals for the NSPCA. I don't foster regular animals. I foster medical dogs who are in severe need and really need help. Most of the animals that I have taken from the Nevada SPCA myself have passed away within days of taking them from the shelter because of the lack of medical care that they get at this facility. It is neglect, it is shameful, and people like myself, I'm caught in this in-between position. So do I go and I help because I know I can help, or do I take a stand and say this is wrong, we need to do something about this? I myself have called animal control about 7 times in the past 6 years about the same incident. I have photos, I have proof. You know, it's just very disconcerting. I recently left the Nevada SPCA last month because another animal that they had asked me to help them with, they decided that they we're going to put down instead. I found the dog a foster home. I got it out of the shelter, and they decided that it was more important to put the dog to sleep than put the money into fixing the problem. Now, as a 501c3, we're an animal rescue. We're not a shelter. We don't get money. When you take these dogs from the shelter, Animal Foundation, you are promising what we call in animal rescue the 5 freedoms, which is to take care of these animals, and that is just not happening. I also asked Kathy Jung and the current director for what's called the 990 form, which is a public form that I, by law, am able to get and receive. I was not, they would not give that to me. I did have to file what's called a 13990 with the IRS because they refused to give out this information to the public.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Chelsea Collins. I have too much information regarding our documentation of these numerous issues to convey it all in 3 minutes, so I'm just going to tell you a quick story that kind of goes into a few of the things. Marley was a dog that lived in a kennel in an area we referred to as the back because it was located behind a barrier that we were not allowed to cross. After years, rules changed, and we were eventually allowed in the back. Marley was not on our list of dogs that we were allowed to walk, but I did notice her. It was hard not to. Marley had severe barrier reactivity issues, or what we called kennel aggression. As you approached her kennel, her body would get tense and she would bark ferociously and snarl while baring her teeth at you. She was there likely for close to a year before I started to work with her. I sat on the concrete floor outside her kennel door and hoped that if I could get her to feel safe with me, she would stop her aggressive behavior and staff might allow me to walk her. Without being walked, she had no hope of becoming adoptable. I learned that I wasn't the only volunteer working with her, and the two of us were determined to get her out for a walk. Marley soon stopped barking and snarling at us when we came over to her. We were able to show staff her progress and convince them that we could safely walk her. We were both very confident that Marley only acted this way in her kennel and would be fine in the outside world. Staff stood by as we leashed her up, and we walked her out of the building for the first time since she had been surrendered. It went flawlessly. Given this great success, we were allowed to continue walking her, but it wasn't long before our hearts were crushed. The other volunteer contacted me one day and said that Marley was gone. She had been sent to another rescue. We weren't given the opportunity to say goodbye, nor would they tell us which rescue she was sent to. It was devastating. On the day of her first successful walk, an employee sent us a message thanking us and saying that we had saved her life. I don't feel confident that we did, but she'll always be in our hearts. Marley is not the only dog with a story like this there. Marley's story is just one example of how the Nevada SPCA chooses to run their shelter with no transparency. Everything is a secret. There are secret rooms, there are secret kennel areas, secret dogs, secrets surrounding the deaths of dogs, secret medical issues, secret rescues that dogs are transferred to, secret rules, the secret disappearance of donated items, and even a secret liability waiver and contract that they wouldn't provide us a copy of right after we signed. The secrets need to stop, and they owe the community and the animals in their care a shelter with transparency. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Rosemarie Alero. This statement is from former volunteer Renee Rubinger, who is currently out of state. I was a volunteer at NSPCA June 2013 to April 2016, and during that time I dealt with horrific scenarios. I brought a hose for washing urine and feces off dogs due to the backed up sewage in their kennels. I saw dogs with the average weight on intake become emaciated in a month's time due to the small amounts of food given. They fought with pigeons coming in through the roof for food. Canine bodies often torn due to broken wire from dilapidated chain link gates. I was reprimanded for killing black widows in kennels. I was told not to upset them. Dogs were boarded in a section known as overflow. This was where they housed the lifers, the forgotten ones, and the unadoptables that were never to leave the shelter. After working with them, several were rehabilitated and adopted. I was granted access to handle dogs that only experienced staff were allowed to get out. I saw a dog with a dangling and dislocated jaw. I asked why this dog wasn't receiving immediate medical care, to which they replied, "He's on the list." To compound the issue, other dogs were housed in the same kennel. It was common that small dogs be kept 5 and 6 to a kennel, where food-aggressive dogs would thrive, others would lose weight forced to fight for food. I have seen dogs go without water when temperatures exceeded 116 degrees, and told once by a staff member, "I'm not giving that dog water. I hate that expletive dog." Stuart, who came in from an abused background, was there for 7 years, kept in a half kennel, which meant no sunlight, no exposure to fresh air. I worked with him and was successful at rehabilitation after receiving bites on my hands. I asked the director at this point, can we bring a behavioralist to work with the difficult dogs, and I was denied. The person in charge of adoption would often dissuade potential adopters or use bait and switch tactics when someone was interested in adopting. This happened 3 times. I sent families there to adopt specific dogs. Beamer, a longtime resident, was missing one morning. I questioned the staff and was told he was found dead in his kennel. He was perfectly fine when I left him the day before, and staff was instructed that if they spoke of this, they would be terminated. Portable AC units were donated by Home Depot, and as soon as they arrived, they vanished into thin air. When we asked questions, we were threatened with losing our privilege of being volunteers and would be banned from the shelter. To this day, I remember those smells of stench, the terrible barking and the whimpering cries. They have become a part of me and will be with me forever. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Alan Carroll. As a pet parent, I ask that you listen not only with your minds, but your hearts as well. Envision the following. Your family forced to eat and drink out of dinnerware filled with roaches. Their dungeon-like living areas infested with black widows. In the extreme temperatures, no air conditioning, and on the coldest days of the year, no heating. Forced to live not only in filthy, backed-up sewage, but also covered in their own urine and feces. Who among you would not take action? This is the daily existence of Nspca animals, many residing there for over 5 years. I won't even speak to the negligence of medical treatment or lack thereof. Animals are voiceless and helpless. They deserve better. Why would any community allow this to continue? I believe if all were made aware, they would demand change. It is heartbreaking to witness how animals endure under these horrific circumstances. Many do not, and their loss diminishes all of us. Las Vegas Boy Scouts built over 200 beds for the kennels. They were never put in. Over 5 years ago, I brought in an electrician, trained air conditioning expert, and sewer technician. The electrician made as many repairs as he could and supplied the materials, all pro bono. The train manager was willing to supply and install HVAC units at cost. They were all treated poorly and turned away with, "We don't need your help." The sewer tech was appalled at what he saw, stating that the entire system must be redone. Years of waste, excrement, hair, roaches, etc. End result, he too was turned away. I sat with the assistant director of the Nspca and saw plans and drawings which were to renovate the entire property, including new housing for the animals. This was in 2013. The renovation was to begin that spring. I was told funds were in place and groundbreaking was to occur in the early spring. It is almost 6 years later and nothing has been done with the exception of a repainted lobby. Why? Where is the money for this project? Where is the money that has been raised in the last 5 years? There are records that indicate over $2.5 million taken in yearly by the Nspca. It's time for answers, time for truth and transparency, and time for immediate action. Those in charge need to be held accountable. It is incomprehensible that these animals must survive in such squalor, and needlessly so. I thank you for your time and consideration and hope that my words have touched upon your humanity.
Thank you so much. Anybody else wishing to speak during public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment.